We're back! You're back. My beard is back. Welcome, everyone. I'm Graham INSCOE, and for today's how-to video, we're taking a look at the character and gameplay of Baron Mercredi, Talisman-packed Warlock and Keeper of the Eye. First things first, though. If you haven't already seen it, a link to Baron's backstory video can be found in the description, alongside links to all of her free, downloadable, custom-drawn character sheets. Warlocks. I love Warlocks. They're full casters that operate on an entirely different casting system than any other class in the game. They're simple to build well and quickly, but are far and away the most customizable class in the game, and can be molded to fit into any number of odd niches and important party roles. As a Pact of the Talisman Warlock, the recently dubbed Baron Mercredi is more of a support caster than your average lock, but that's getting ahead of ourselves a bit. First, let's talk about Baron, and how who she is as a character can shine through in her mechanics and gameplay. Baron, or at least the young woman she used to be, was raised in a town simply abhorrent and actively toxic to her nature and abilities. Misogyny and niche fundamentalists, name me a more iconic duo. A young girl with a curious mind and a penchant for pushing boundaries imposed by others, she grew up willing to take risk after risk in order to slowly build a life for herself more akin to her own desires. And when the opportunity to alter her situation drastically finally presented itself, she leapt into the void after it and never looked back. A risk taker willing and eager to start from scratch on her own terms, Baron has truly left her old life behind and enters into her new one brimming with power granted by something beyond mortal comprehension. Confronted with her past, she embraced it, but when faced with the choice to hold on to it or to move forward, she accepted the terms wordlessly offered by the entity beyond the eye, embraced the agony of change, and emerged more than whole, greater than the sum of her parts. She is potential waiting to be unleashed. She is a young woman about to see the world beyond her small-town cult for the first time. She is an agent of a force unknowable. She is Baron Mercredi, and the world is finally her oyster. Back to Warlocks in general, and the niche we particularly strove for in building Baron's character sheet. There are a couple of things that all Warlocks have in common. They all gain their power through pacts with some sort of supernatural being, and they're all really good at blasting enemies. To the former point, though, we want to drop an important caveat on y'all. Baron, like all Warlocks, made some sort of pact, in her case with the thing behind the eye, to gain her powers. That deal is made. There is nothing in the rules stating that a continued relationship with her patron is required to maintain her arcane and eldritch capabilities, which isn't to say that we discourage such things. Handled correctly, an exploration of a Warlock's relationship with their patron and the patron side of the bargain can lead to excellent storytelling and role-playing moments at the table, and lead to further investment into the story. Rather, the point we want to make here is that Baron's players shouldn't necessarily be concerned about having all of their class features yanked away because their patron demands some unthinkable act as tribute or something similarly ridiculous. Some DMs and players will want that type of dynamic, and that's fine, but it requires a lot of trust all around the table, and it's the kind of thing that should be broached during a session 0 or outside of play before it comes up in a heated story moment. That concludes our PSA. Let's break down this character sheet and dive into just how we turn an occult, backrooms-inspired blastcaster into a versatile team player. Warlocks rely on charisma as their primary casting stat, but we're taking advantage of some variant human shenanigans here to maximize our points during character creation. Charisma will eventually be a 16 at level 1, but during the point buy process, we're only bringing it to a 15. Roll with me, we'll get there. Constitution, we will bump straight to a 16, however. Con is always important for casters, and while Baron has a bigger hit die than a sorcerer or a wizard does, maintaining concentration on a spell becomes extra essential when you're only casting a maximum of 2 leveled spells per encounter or stretch of dungeon. Strength is our dump stat here. Nothing in Baron's upbringing really afforded her the opportunity for much strength training, and her class and playstyle have no use for it. By leaving our dexterity at a neutral 10, it leaves room to place our intelligence and wisdom at +1 modifiers, 12 and 13 respectively. This means that Baron's armor class and initiative leave a bit to be desired, but it will help with her outside of combat utility and give her a slightly better chance of passing wisdom saving throws, in which she is proficient alongside charisma saves. The cloistered scholar background is about as close as we can get to a good match for Baron without getting into custom backgrounds. And so she's proficient in the Arcana, Deception, History, and Investigation skills, and speaks Common, Dwarvish, Elvish, and Halfling. We also pick up one free floating skill proficiency, thanks to Variant Human, which we'll put towards our Persuasion to maximize party face potential. And most importantly here, we start the game with a feat at level 1. Now, Baron is a warlock with a great Old One patron and subclass. But while the entity that granted her power is certainly beyond comprehension and detrimental to humanoid consciousness, it isn't quite an exact match for a horror from beyond the stars in flavor or in practice, and we wanted to reflect that while maximizing Baron's effectiveness in her niche. As such, we've selected the Fey-touched feat. After all, the taking of a name as payment screams Fey influence, and here at Backstory, we're suckers for blending tropes and throwing wrenches into things. This brings our level 1 charisma up to that 16 and +3 modifier, and grants Baron some extra options for her somewhat limited spellcasting. Fey-touched grants a free casting of Misty Step once per day, and additionally, a free casting of a first level divination or enchantment spell of our choice. These spells can also be cast with spell slots. Talisman-packed warlocks have real potential to be solid support casters, but by adding a free Bless to Baron's arsenal once per day, it massively increases her ability to provide support in and out of combat, and frees up her spell slots for other uses. At level 1, in addition to her subclass, Baron kicks things off with the Pact Magic system, putting the spells in Spellcaster. We'll hit on spell selection in a bit, but we want to explain how Pact Magic differs from standard spellcasting. Baron starts the game with just a singular level 1 spell slot, which recharges on a short rest instead of a long one. She'll pick up a second spell slot at level 2, but that's it for the next 10 levels. And since these spell slots scale up based on standard caster progression, it means that even though Baron is slinging fewer spells per encounter than some of her allies, they're always at the maximum level a caster of her player level is capable of casting. This can be a blessing and a curse, but so long as your DM and party support even sporadic short rests, Baron should have no problem keeping up with her party mates. Also at this level, our Great Old One subclass grants us the Awakened Mind feature, which allows Baron one-way telepathy with a given creature within 30 feet of her, and it also expands her spell list somewhat. Level 2 brings us the aforementioned second spell slot, and also the Eldritch Invocations feature. Invocations being a way for warlocks to expand their casting abilities or pick up additional abilities or features. We get to select 2 for now, so we're starting off with Agonizing Blast, which adds Baron's Charisma modifier to the damage of her Eldritch Blasts, and which should be a given for all warlocks, but is sadly not a default of the class. Also here we're picking up Devil's Sight, which grants Baron dark vision up to 120 feet, capable of seeing through even magical darkness. At 3rd level, Baron picks up her Pact boon, and as Keeper of the Eye, she's taking that Talisman boon we mentioned earlier. Whether the talisman is the eye itself pulled from her skull, or a facsimile amulet is entirely up to player and DM fiat, but either way, Baron can now wear her talisman or give it to an ally to utilize. And for now, that utilization is exclusively limited to adding a D4 to a failed ability check by the wearer a few times per day. She'll pick up another couple of tricks involving the talisman as time goes on, but before we get there, level 4 is our first ability score increase, and we're going to keep it simple and push our charisma to 18, increasing Baron's spell save DC and spell attack modifier, as well as providing a bump to her social skills. Level 5 is a new Eldritch Invocation. Eyes of the Runekeeper allows Baron to read any writing she comes across in any language. A handy trick for a curious Eldritch practitioner to keep in her back pocket. Level 6 is the Great Old One feature and Tropic Ward. It allows Baron to apply disadvantage to any one attack directed at her, and should the attack then miss, she gains advantage on her next attack roll against the target. And now, at level 7, we finally get to expand on our talisman features. By picking up the Protection of the Talisman invocation, the wearer of the talisman can now add a d4 to a failed saving throw, taking the talisman cleanly out of the realm of out-of-combat utility and turning it into an essential emergency tool in critical combats. Not too much left for us before we tackle spell selection. At level 8, we're using our ASI to max our charisma at 20. At level 9, we pick up the Eldritch Mind invocation, granting Baron advantage on con saves made to maintain spell concentration. And then finally, at level 10, our subclass brings us the Thought Shield feature, rendering Baron immune to having her mind read or probed, and granting her resistance to psychic damage while reflecting said psychic damage back at the damage dealer. That's it for class features. Cue the fancy spellcasting graphic. It might be time to upgrade. Baron starts the game with 2 cantrip options, and first and foremost has to be the Warlock exclusive Eldritch Blast. Coupled with the Agonizing Blast invocation, this cantrip allows Baron to fall back on a powerful ranged damage per round option, competitive with any ranged martial, barring sharpshooter shenanigans. Minor Illusion will be our second pick, providing some fun utility and variety for Baron while she's not in the heat of battle. Baron also knows 2 first level spells right off the bat, and we're pulling our options from both the Warlock list and the Great Old One expanded spell list. We've already got Bless on our list thanks to Fey Touched, and we'd be hard pressed to find a better general support spell on the Warlock list. So with that niche covered, Baron's starting the game with Hideous Laughter as a solid single target crowd control option, as well as Arms of Hadar, an area of effect centered around Baron and her immediate vicinity, which causes damage and also prevents enemies from taking reactions, such as opportunity attacks, when successful. This is absolutely clutch for a character that thrives most when she's not in the direct thick of things and might need to get out quickly. At level 2, we'll round out our first level spells with Protection from Evil and Good, a single target buff that provides defense against a massive sprawl of various creature types. Once we get to level 3 and second level spells, our options start to open up a bit, and since Baron already has access to Misty Step, it frees us up to select some more niche choices over the must-have teleport option. First and foremost, we already established that Mercredi has Devil's Sight, so we're picking up Darkness. A word of warning though, while the implications of a potentially mobile 15-foot sphere of space that only Baron can see through is tempting, it's also very easy to get in your own way or your teammates' way while relying on this trick. Baron will put disadvantage on the attacks of anyone but herself and creatures with blindsight or tremor sense within this radius or gazing into it, but that might severely hinder the fighter waiting to action surge or the paladin waiting to smite to end the combat. And if an enemy is already suffering disadvantage on their attacks, all Darkness will achieve is making it more difficult for your allies to succeed, while not adding additional detriments to the targeted foes. It's a potent spell with incredible synergy with Devil's Sight, don't get me wrong. But unless Baron is positioned to be the primary damage dealer of an encounter anyway, it may not be quite as overwhelming a play as it first appears. We're also gonna ditch Protection from Evil and Good here for Suggestion. Suggestion can be very powerful in the right circumstances and with the right DM, and the masked benefits of Bless usually outweigh the single target benefits of Protection anyway. At PC level 4, Baron will pick up Detect Thoughts, granting her some eerie espionage and interrogatory abilities. We also grab a cantrip here, and since nothing will be out-damaging Eldritch Blast, we're gonna add Prestidigitation to Baron's kit for even more utility and potential shenanigans. Level 5 means third level spells, and the usual power spike at this level is in full swing for our One-Eyed Warlock. Recently released official enemies have been moving away from spells and towards magical attacks and effects, but if your DM likes to run proper spellcaster enemies, Counterspell is indispensable here. If you're not playing in a campaign or setting to get mileage out of it though, pick up Hypnotic Pattern here at level 5. I've spoken before on this spell, and it truly is one of the best crowd control options in the game. At level 6, we're taking Hypnotic Pattern if we previously took Counterspell, and otherwise we're grabbing Fly. Someone in the party should always be capable of casting it, and since it will always be cast at a higher level when possible, Baron makes a great candidate for this spell, very quickly defaulting to casting it on 2 or even 3 targets. For level 7, and the wonderful world of 4th level spells, we're going to start with Dimension Door, because sometimes the best support is the ability to move an ally from one side of the battlefield to the other. And at level 8, we grab Psychic Lance, a reasonably high damage single target spell that will incapacitate its target, impeding its actions and setting up allies for a potential coup de grace. We won't have this spell for long though, because at level 5, we're swapping it out for Synaptic Static, which provides fireball level area of effect damage and potentially impedes multiple enemies significantly without requiring concentration. For our free edition at this level, we're rating our subclass options and picking up Dominate Person, allowing Baron to turn humanoid enemies into allies, or at least into meat shields or accomplices, for up to a minute. And finally, at player level 10, Baron picks up the Mage Hand cantrip and the Hold Monster spell, allowing her to paralyze a creature of any type in the game and set it up to be decimated by her allies. Also of note here is the scaling of Bless. When cast without a spell slot, it is cast as though it's at 1st level, but if Baron chooses to cast it with one of her 5th level spell slots, she can now target up to 7 allies and or herself with the spell, sharing the vast benefits of this humble buff across all but the largest of adventuring parties in their entirety. That's all we've got for our Macabre Warlock Baron, a woman determined to break out of the mold she found herself cast into. We hope that this video helped you understand a little better how to utilize her abilities as she levels up. What she utilizes them for is entirely in your hands now. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support our channel and gain access to some other fun D&D Backstory content, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description. To find all of our other characters and how-to videos, head over to the channel by clicking D&D Backstory below. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, or if you'd like to see us create a certain type of character, be sure to get at us in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.